Welcome to another deep dive.
where we take a dense stack of info
Yeah, and
and pull out the crucial insights.
pull out those golden nuggets
Yeah.
so you can be in the know.
That's right.
And this deep dive is tailored for you, the learner, someone who's like,
That's right.
I want to grasp knowledge quickly, thoroughly, but
Yeah.
also like really get those aha moments. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And have a structure that just makes sense.
Totally. Structure is so key.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we are embarking on a remarkable journey, I would say.
A remarkable journey indeed.
We are diving deep into Michael A. Singer's The Surrender Experiment,
My journey into life's perfection.
which is kind of a bold statement right there.
That's a big one.
Life's perfection.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this book, I mean, it's not your typical memoir.
Not at all.
It's really the story of decades that he spent consciously surrendering to life rather than battling it with personal will. You know, like, I'm going to make this happen.
Force it.
I'm going to force it.
Yeah.
So yeah, our goal today is to really like unpack the core principles
Right.
that he's exploring. See what resonates, what we can take away from it, this radical way of living.
Absolutely. You know, I think the whole premise of this book hinges on a very profound personal realization that he had.
Okay.
And as a former economics student, by the way,
Right. Which is interesting.
deeply engaged in meditation,
Yeah.
he actually experiences this distinct separation
Okay.
between his observing self and the constant activity of his mind and emotions.
So almost like he's watching his thoughts and emotions.
Watching his thoughts and emotions, exactly.
Rather than being them.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And so he describes this moment very vividly, right? It's back in 1970.
Yeah, okay.
He's sitting on his couch with his brother-in-law, Ronnie.
Okay.
There's this pause in the conversation.
Oh, the dreaded pause.
The dreaded pause. Yeah, and suddenly he becomes hyper-aware of this discomfort with silence.
Mm.
And he can actually watch his mind frantically searching for something to say.
Like almost like scrambling.
Scrambling, yes.
Yeah.
To fill that void.
Oh, that's so relatable.
Right. And I think what's so key here is it wasn't just the discomfort itself,
Yeah.
but his awareness of it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. He wasn't swept away by the social awkwardness.
Mm.
He was actually observing the mechanism of his mind, trying to avoid it.
Okay. So interesting.
Yeah. And this subtle yet powerful feeling of separation became the bedrock of everything that followed.
It's crazy to think like something so internal
I know.
could create such a huge shift in his external reality.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not a one-time thing either.
Yeah.
This is what's really interesting.
Right.
He starts noticing this more consistently,
Okay.
and it becomes a pattern.
Gotcha.
And we see the early impact of this awareness
Okay.
during a camping trip to Ocala National Forest.
Okay.
So he goes there seeking solitude for meditation,
Okay.
finds himself near this wetland,
Mm.
and experiences a deeply transformative state.
So he was looking for it.
He was seeking it, yeah.
Yeah.
And he talks about this incredible stillness,
Okay.
profound peace, where time seemed to dissolve.
Wow.
His perception of his surroundings even shifts.
Okay.
And he describes this wetland looking like a delicate Japanese rice paper painting.
That's a really like serene and detailed image.
It is. And it's interesting because this wasn't just a momentary meditative bliss.
Okay.
He recounts that for weeks afterwards, his physical movements felt different, effortlessly graceful.
Wow.
Like somebody who never thought of himself as particularly coordinated is suddenly moving with this kind of dancer's ease.
That's wild.
It really suggests that this inner shift had a tangible impact on his physical being.
That is so fascinating. Okay, so then he has this encounter with two ranch hands on horseback,
Right.
and his immediate mental reaction is suspicion, like a warning.
Oh, they could be dangerous.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And this is a classic example of what he calls this pestering voice.
Okay,
Right.
the inner critic.
This constant stream of fear-based thoughts and judgments.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm.
But instead of acting on that initial fear, he chooses to accept their offer of help,
Okay,
which turned out to be completely benign
okay.
and even pleasant interaction.
Interesting. So he kind of surrendered to the moment.
He surrendered to the moment.
Yeah.
And he realized how often that fearful voice might prevent us from experiencing positive connections.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so it wasn't just like isolated incidents either.
Yeah.
He talks about visiting a primitive Mexican village and noticing a complete absence of that usual mental chatter while he was there.
Yeah, it's like surrounded by the simplicity and natural rhythm of that environment.
Yeah.
That constant internal commentary just quieted down.
Interesting.
Right. And it provides this stark contrast to our often overstimulated mental landscape.
Totally.
And then the simple act of giving the rice and beans that he had stored to the villagers.
Right.
And the resulting joy.
Yeah.
It really highlights this emerging theme of letting go of what you have and embracing the present moment's needs.
Okay, so how does this principle of surrender navigate something like the structured world of academia?
Right.
Because he was on track to be an economics professor.
Yeah, it was. But his priorities began to fundamentally change.
Okay.
That drive for that traditional academic career kind of diminished.
Yeah.
And his passion for this deeper meditative exploration grew.
Okay.
But he still held a deep respect for Dr. Goffman, the head of the economics department.
Oh, okay.
And so out of that respect, he agreed to finish his coursework.
Even though he wasn't really feeling it?
Yeah, even though his enthusiasm had waned.
Gotcha.
And there's this great anecdote about him writing a class paper in his van.
Okay.
Remarkably free from that usual academic stress.
So he let go of the outcome?
He let go of the outcome, and he actually experienced a surge of inspiration.
That's amazing.
And wrote the paper quite easily.
That's so cool.
And it points to this idea that sometimes our resistance is the biggest obstacle to progress.
That's so true. Okay, and then there's the truly unexpected request to build a small house.
I know. Out of nowhere.
He has absolutely no construction experience.
None.
But he says yes.
He says yes.
And figures it out.
And figures it out. He even learns electrical wiring from a book.
What? That's incredible.
It is.
So it's like he embraced the unknown.
Embraced the unknown.
And learned as he went.
Right. And this really becomes a defining characteristic of the surrender experiment. He's not limited by this perceived lack of skills or experience. He just follows the opportunity.
That is amazing. Okay, so this brings us to the beginning of what he calls the Great Experiment.
Yes.
He had this crucial insight that constantly trying to silence the mind might be missing the point.
It's like he starts questioning the very source and purpose of all that internal dialogue.
Like, what's it even there for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's significant here is the shift in his approach. Instead of trying to control the thoughts themselves, he began to look at the underlying energy driving them.
Oh, interesting.
Right. And this led to a conscious decision to surrender to the flow of life. And test this hypothesis that life wasn't just a series of random events.
Like maybe there's something else going on here.
Right. And he already had these experiences to look back on, right?
Yeah.
The unplanned trip to Mexico. Discovering his property.
Yeah.
Even how the house building project came about.
Right.
None of this was like traditional forceful planning.
Yeah.
It emerged from him letting go of his resistance and acting on these subtle pulls and opportunities.
Okay, so he's like letting go of the reins a little bit?
Letting go of the reins.
Yeah.
And he started to recognize that perhaps life has this wisdom that his own preferences couldn't always grasp.
Interesting. Okay, so how did this play out in like the more mundane aspects of daily life? It's not like he was just meditating in isolation all the time.
Right.
He was still teaching, interacting with the world.
Absolutely.
Right. So how did this work?
Well, there's this rather humorous story of him trying to maintain a meditative state while teaching.
Okay.
Which resulted in him walking into a lecture hall barefoot and shirtless.
Oh, my God.
Because he had forgotten to fully dress after his morning yoga.
That is amazing. I mean, it really underscores his dedication, though.
It does. It does.
Right. Like he was really committed to this internal state.
Very much so.
Yeah. Okay, and then there's this deepening friendship with Alan the banker, someone he initially felt a strong aversion to.
Right. And by not allowing that initial judgment to dictate the relationship, he actually discovered this really valuable connection.
Oh, wow.
And so he started to see these unexpected relationships, even the ones that felt uncomfortable at first, as potentially significant.
That's interesting. Yeah. So he was open to those things.
Open to the possibility.
Yeah. Okay, so even facing something as anxiety-inducing as qualifying exams, he approached it with a sense of surrender, right? Like whatever happens, happens.
Accepting whatever outcome might occur.
Yeah, and remarkably, he encountered the precise material he had briefly reviewed beforehand.
It's like by releasing that need to control the result, he became open to unexpected support, Or maybe just more attuned to the information he needed.
That's so fascinating. Okay, and then there's the organic way the Sunday morning services began at his home.
Right.
Right. It wasn't like a planned initiative.
Not at all. It just kind of happened.
It was this natural outgrowth of people joining him in meditation.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So he didn't intend for that to happen. It just kind of...
It unfolded.
It unfolded.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then the silent retreat in California. That seems like a deliberate intensification of this inner work.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. He used that time for deep self-inquiry.
Okay.
Really observing the inner workings of his mind.
And he even develops this powerful visualization of a room inside the mind as a tool for detaching from.
Okay.
And observing his personal self as this distinct entity.
That's a really cool image.
Yeah. And it's a technique that's used in many different meditative traditions.
Oh, okay.
To cultivate this non-identification with thoughts and emotions.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so then there's the unsolicited construction of Sandy's house on his property.
Oh, yeah.
His first reaction was resistance.
Of course.
But he ultimately chooses to override his personal preference and support their building project.
And I think this really exemplifies the core of his experiment.
Okay.
Right? When faced with this conflict between personal inclination and what life seemed to be presenting,
yeah,
he consistently chose to align with the latter.
That's pretty remarkable.
It is.
So as he continues this practice of surrender, his life really starts to veer in some truly unforeseen directions,
Right.
particularly with the growth of a spiritual community around him.
Absolutely. His classes become increasingly popular. More and more people are drawn to the Sunday meditations.
Okay.
And this leads to another unexpected development, Dr. Goffman's request for him to finally submit his dissertation.
What? So he was still kind of connected to that world.
In a way, yeah. And despite having no real intention of writing one,
Okay.
he agreed as this act of surrender to Dr. Goffman's wish.
That's incredible.
And it turned out that he had a very profound topic to explore.
Yeah.
Which was the nature of the inner voice. And this fundamental unity between science and spirituality.
Wow. Okay, so he's starting to connect these different areas of his life in a new way.
Absolutely. And he begins to perceive that teaching and meditating weren't separate pursuits.
Okay.
But different expressions of this same underlying spiritual energy.
That's interesting.
And then a simple request from a neighbor.
Okay. Leads
to him working with inmates in prison.
Oh, wow.
Which proved to be a deeply meaningful and transformative experience for him.
It's amazing how these little surrendered yeses
I know.
Can lead to such huge...
It's incredible.
Yeah, consequences.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have these synchronicities. Like encountering the same yoga master through two different individuals.
Right.
Shelley and then Rama.
Yeah, and these seemingly coincidental meetings become more frequent as his surrender deepens. It's almost as if the universe is providing guidance or confirmation.
Yeah, like little nudges along the way.
And this culminates in the invitation to accompany Baba.
Okay.
And this very powerful experience of Shaktipat.
And even Ronnie, the big city attorney, shows up at Baba's retreat.
I know.
So this is really starting to touch all these different...
All walks of life.
Yeah. And meeting Baba marked a significant shift.
It did.
Right? From this solitary practice to a life of service within a community.
Exactly.
Okay, so we see this immediately after Baba's departure.
Right.
With this spontaneous desire to build a temple on his land.
The community comes together.
Right. And he's initially resistant.
Of course.
But goes with it.
He goes with the flow.
Yeah.
And then Amrit's visit brings another surge of intense energy.
Okay.
And this period leads to the formal establishment of Temple of the Universe.
Okay.
And he even donates his personal property to it.
Wow.
Which is really remarkable.
It's a huge level of detachment.
It is. It's embodying that principle of non-attachment.
Yeah.
And complete trust in the unfolding of life.
That's incredible.
And more sincere seekers, like Radha, begin to unexpectedly move in, further solidifying that community.
Okay, so then there's this really interesting beginning of Built with Love Construction Company.
Right.
So again, not planned.
Not planned.
But he surrenders to the path.
He does.
Right. And even an encounter with the sheriff's deputy, which could have been really stressful.
Yeah.
He meets that with calmness.
Calm and surrender.
Yeah.
Despite those internal anxieties.
Yeah. Right. And the challenge of obtaining a construction loan, that's another great example of how things kind of work out in a weird way.
Yeah, it seems impossible.
Right.
And then he has this chance reconnection with Jim Owens, the former banker, who had helped him years prior, and now Jim is in need of a loan.
Oh, wow.
So it creates this beautiful moment of reciprocal support.
That's incredible.
Isn't it? It's like these moments of interconnectedness orchestrated by the universe.
Yeah. And throughout all this, the temple community continues to grow.
It does.
Right. We even hear about David, the inmate who initiated meditation sessions within the prison, and his really surrendered response to facing these charges for past actions.
Right.
It's pretty powerful.
And that account of that spiritual figure visiting David in solitary confinement is very moving.
Yeah. It really speaks to the power of inner peace
Right.
and surrender in the face of difficulty.
Even in the most challenging circumstances.
Absolutely. Okay, so then just when you think life has settled into this rhythm of spiritual community and construction, there's this huge turn.
Total curveball.
Towards the tech industry.
Out of the blue.
He walks into Radio Shack.
Right.
Intending to buy something for his construction business and sees a TRS-80 computer.
He does.
And he's captivated.
Never seen anything like it before.
And despite having absolutely no prior experience, he starts teaching himself how to code.
Yeah.
What?
Through sheer curiosity and experimentation.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And his very first programming project.
An accounting system for Built with Love.
Wow.
This is someone who a few years earlier was living this relatively simple, meditative life in the woods.
It's amazing.
Right. So it really demonstrates that open mind and willingness to learn and adapt to whatever comes.
Yeah. So the manager at Radio Shack starts referring clients to him.
He does.
And personalized programming is born.
Just like that.
And this little side project becomes a nationwide multi-million-dollar company.
It does.
That is incredible.
Incredible.
So the launch of the medical manager software at a Las Vegas trade show, that was a big moment.
A pivotal moment.
He goes from quiet solitude to this massive high-energy industry event.
That's right.
And it was a success.
An immediate success.
Yes.
Systems plus the company they partnered with for marketing.
Yeah.
They could barely keep up with the demand.
Oh.
They had to start renting entire hotels to accommodate everyone who wanted training.
That's amazing. And the insurance billing template?
Game changer.
That they developed.
For medical practices.
Yeah.
Right.
And as healthcare starts shifting towards electronic billing, personalized programming was right there.
In the right place at the right time.
Ready to go. Totally. And then another one of those serendipitous encounters.
Yes.
A meeting with Paul Dobbins, who was a fellow follower of Yogananda, ends up becoming a key part of the company.
Another key player.
These connections are wild.
Right.
Yeah. And so the company's rapid growth, they need more and more buildings. And then they need to rewrite the medical manager from the ground up.
They do.
Leading to the development of Intergy. It was a period of intense growth and innovation.
It was.
So navigating a rapidly expanding business is challenging enough.
I can imagine.
But doing it with this commitment to surrender adds another layer to the story.
Yeah.
So we see this with the acquisition of property near the temple.
Right.
And it seemed like the right opportunities arose, guided by this unseen flow.
As if by magic.
And even when they face zoning issues, the resolution with that adjacent waste dump property.
I know. That was crazy.
It's incredible. Right place, right time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tim arrives to re-engineer the software.
Another perfect intervention.
Right, at the right time. It seems that way.
Yeah. And that difficult period with Amaret leads to the acquisition of a new property. It's like these challenges often precede these breakthroughs. Yeah. Okay, so then there's the proposal for a $1 billion merger. He's constantly having to release his attachments and his preferences.
Right.
And his father, in a surprising turn, offers business advice.
Before his passing.
Yeah. And then the original stock certificate, now incredibly valuable, is found in a safety deposit box.
Just before the IPO.
Right before the IPO.
Amazing.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And so becoming a publicly traded company brought all these new complexities.
A whole new set of challenges.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But his vision for medical manager network services proved to be another success.
It did.
And then A merger offer from Synetic.
Out of nowhere.
Leads to him becoming co-CEO of the newly formed Medical Manager Corporation.
Co-CEO.
It's a whirlwind. It's a lot.
Of business deals.
Absolutely.
And then a merger with WebMD during the dot-com boom.
Right.
And then a reorganization. Intense change.
Uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the events during Marv Rich's visit led to the decision to keep the Alachua team intact.
It did.
And the company received recognition.
A lot of recognition.
Including the Smithsonian.
Right.
Pretty amazing. And even a Department of Justice inquiry into the merger is resolved without any major repercussions.
It seems that even significant external challenges were navigated with a degree of grace.
Yeah.
And then the FBI raid.
The FBI raid.
This is a really dramatic and unforeseen event in the narrative.
Yeah. Agents show up, shut down the facility, seize documents, computer files.
A lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you even deal with that?
Well, in the book, he describes his reaction as remarkable, calm, and complete surrender to the situation. Yeah.
So he engages legal counsel, including Randy Turk. And while this legal cloud is hanging over him, he starts writing The Untethered Soul.
Unbelievable. That's incredible that he could find that stillness and creative space. Amidst all the chaos.
Yeah. And it's discovered that no executives, except for Bobby Davids, had done anything wrong.
Yeah.
And the government offers a settlement, drops all charges. And his realization is that by consistently surrendering at each step, there were no lasting scars.
It's like the events passed through him without clinging.
That's amazing. His transformation throughout this journey.
It's undeniable.
Is incredible.
Yeah.
He even says, like, the person who started the experiment is not the same person who came out on the other side.
That's right.
Yeah. The flow of life really reshaped him.
Completely.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the surrender experiment.
The central insight is this power that can come from surrendering to the natural flow of life.
Absolutely. And Singer's story is packed with these aha moments.
From that initial awareness
to
the grace he experienced after meditation, the unexpected assistance from strangers, the rise of his tech company.
It all points to something transformative happening when we release our need to control every outcome.
Absolutely. So for you, the learner,
the key takeaway here is to reflect on the role that your own personal preferences and the need for control play in your life.
Where are you resisting the natural flow of events?
That's the question.
That's a really good question. And here's a final thought.
Okay.
What new possibilities might emerge if you consciously experimented with surrender in just one specific area of your life?
Ooh, interesting.
How could that shift in perspective lead to unexpected growth and surprising discoveries?
I love it.
We strongly encourage you to check out The Surrender Experiment for a much richer, detailed exploration of these concepts.
It's a book that can really shift your perspective.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time.
Keep questioning and keep learning.
Absolutely.
See you later.